Hello, this is National Chess Master All Rats at chess.com, continuing my video series on the correspondence team match between my video lessons group and the team CARPE DIEM. This was played on board 43, and our man is DIEM6 versus hsdermonaky, and high 1900 versus low 1800 rating advantage for us. Let's have a look at the game. Okay, so Sicilian defense, it can go into what they call the Smith-Morra Gambit declined. I believe White kind of drops the ball with this next move. Thematic and simple is d4, and a normal game will ensue. White ends up taking some structural weaknesses as a result of c4, and we'll see what they are here in a little bit. And now we see what it is. This backward pawn on the open d file. Usually White doesn't end up with a backward pawn on the open d file in a Sicilian defense at all, because that pawn is usually exchanged, right? If anyone has a backward pawn on the open d file, it's black. Now just a little bit of chasing the queen a little bit. I might have considered putting the queen on b8, but d8's fine. The game's relatively even, but White can't forget that he's got a little mess here on his hands. Maybe he could have considered no, he can't do it. Black has too many attackers on there. Pawn takes, knight takes, knight take. No, he can do it. He can play d4. Let's see. Of course, White can throw a6, then d5. It gets kind of tricky. But needless to say, White has some structural disadvantages here. And Black just continues his development. White's after a pawn, but Black has control of d4, and White can't take with his knight because he's going to get forked. So Black just supports d4, nice outpost that White has granted him. And here h3. Just I've been talking about this move in so many of these videos. This move is just plain out terrible. Okay, it doesn't do anything to help White's game. What we'll see in a moment is White's trying to redeploy his knight and use the h2 square. But why? Why not develop something? Why not develop the queen? Okay, get the rooks connected. Maybe think about setting up some counterplay with a break. Use your pieces wisely. Don't just sit there and make weakening moves. Okay, h3 helps White, doesn't help White at all. And these pieces remain inactive, and there's no plan in place for White to try to do anything. Okay, so Black just steadily improves his position, so now the knight's gone to h2. And here White decides to part with the bishop, but Black just takes back with the bishop. And look at those two black bishops pointing at the White king. I mean, this is a great position for Black. White really has nothing. And it's probably best just bring the knight back to f3 and try to chase that bishop out. Anyway, now White offers to trade off the light square bishop to release some of that pressure, but Black finds a good move, preparing to take back on c6 with his knight. So the knight reinforces d4. And now, what's this knight still sitting here over on h2 doing? Why are these still sitting on the back rank? White's played several moves since h3. h3 was his, let's see, it was his 15th move. We're now at move 21. So he still hasn't gotten his back rank going. And for that matter, neither is Black, but Black's got some better minor pieces here and control of the d4 square. And now Black comes up with a fork attacking two pawns, and Black's going to win a pawn. And White's just going to play down a pawn now. And he still hasn't developed his rooks, neither is Black, but that's going to change here, see? Okay. Now here's one of the drawbacks with this h3 move. Let's see, maybe not, let's see. White can't play g3 because the knight takes check, but then I guess the knight's stuck, can't get out. Okay, so I guess White could have played g3 here. g3. Just didn't look beyond. Knight takes Knight takes h3 check. Doesn't work unless I'm missing something. Let's see. King h2. How do you save the knight? You don't. Okay. So White plays King h2 here, putting his king out of play a little bit. And there's that nice d4 square we were talking about. And Black gets ready to double his rooks on the open file. And, Black's just a pawn ahead with a better position. And now the white pawns on the king side are pretty weak, even though they're all in a row. They're potential targets because they're kind of a little closer to the black camp, and avoiding possible discovered tricks on that bishop. And here, white ends up not following a good path here. He's going to end up losing material. He's desperately seeking counterplay and wants his pawn back, but the pressure that black gets on the 7th rank is just overwhelming, and white goes pawn hunting, and this is going to make his game go downhill quick because he's running into problems with that knight on f2, and he's going to lose it. And it wasn't worth collecting these pawns if you're going to lose a piece. White gets a few annoying checks, but there's basically no defense here. King g1 steps out of one pin and into another, so black is going to win a piece. It's just that simple, and with the piece, the game will be a wrap-up. Now, white activates the black king. How courteous of him. And look at that. The king is penetrating into his position, and white's in trouble. And after bishop e3 check, white resigned. I think it's forced mate. You can give up the rook. That's not going to be any fun. But if the king moves, either way, it's an immediate checkmate. Anyway, well played by black. Let's have a look at the next game. Let's load it up. What move will it start it out at? It's supposed to start it out at move 1. Nope. Look at that. All the way down to the ending. Oh my goodness. Okay, flip the board. We have the Scotch game. Now comes the Scotch Gambit. And, once again, I've got to criticize black here seriously for not using the opening books and coming up with a move that a not knowledgeable player might play over the board. What does he play? He plays this horrible h6 move. This is just bad, okay? I don't think white took advantage of it, though. White could have taken advantage of this move. But the game, black ended up equalizing out of this opening. Now, how would you take advantage of a move like this? What's your thought process? Do you have one? Well, I'm going to try to give you one. Okay, let's throw this move out for a second, and let's consider what white has just done. What did I call this game? I call it the Scotch Gambit. Okay, what's a gambit? When you give up something, usually a pawn, for development. Has white given up a pawn? Yes. Can white take the pawn back? Yes. White could have taken the pawn back right here, and that becomes the Scotch game. So this is what designates the Scotch Gambit, is by playing by not taking the pawn right now. White will often not take it for several moves, if at all. He'll be busy attacking. So what should black play in the Scotch Gambit? Well, the main line is to play knight f6. Okay. Now there's some moves that are horrible, like bishop b4 check, c3, pawn takes, then white castles, and suddenly black is virtually lost right here. You can look this up. Okay, that's pretty bad. Let's see, what else can black do? Knight f6. And then there follows e5, and then black usually plays d5, and this is all in the theory. So when black plays h6, he's one tempo behind of doing everything he needs to do in the Scotch Gambit. So the simplest thing for white to do to try to take advantage of this is to simply castle, and then let things follow as they would. Now you have to compare this with the real game, with the real analysis to a Scotch game, or Scotch gambit, but white is castled here, unlike he will be in the other variations. So will that tempo come into play? Extra tempo come into play? There's a good chance it will. I'm not sure what line it will. This is where you do your research. You analyze the Scotch game and you try to find a position where it would be useful for white to have been castled. Well, one nice thing about having white castled is you can afford to give up this e-pawn if you're going to get some quick play on the e-file. So the proper move here was to castle. Instead, what white does is white just takes the pawn right now, and h6 still shouldn't be good for black. But the way the game turns out, white can't crack it. Black continues with a plan that he might in the Scotch game, when white is taking this thing right away, and not developing the bishop to c4. And suddenly black getting his pieces out, and black's developed 3 minor pieces in his queen. And his queen is kind of safe on f6. We don't have the route knight c3 d5. Anyway, let's move forward. And looks like black is getting away with playing h6, and white just doesn't have anything. Now there's a tactical threat. Bishop takes followed by queen takes. White needs to cover that. So he doesn't want double pawns, so he takes. Now I think a good move here would be develop the queen. Okay, get the queen off the back row. Instead, white retreats the bishop, and now get the knight developed. And black has visions maybe of bishop here trying to checkmate, but that's easy to stop. And I would have thought the knight would have been better posted there, but the game's basically even. Now here I think white makes a mistake. He's giving up this e5 square. It'd be much better to just develop a rook. Get the rook into play. It does shut this bishop in, and this does play critical a little later, but I don't think it was the best choice. And now black's eyeballing e5, and this is to keep the knight on b5. I mean, sorry, on c4, preventing b5. But it also makes a weakness. What square does it weaken? Well, it weakens b3, as well as b4, and this actually comes into play here in a minute. You don't see it right now, but as pieces start coming off the board, the position changes, and suddenly black is able to create a threat. Do you see black's threat? If it was black to play, the question would be black to play and win. Well, there is a win, and you might want to pause the video and see if you can see it. Okay, if you resume the video, I hope you saw it, because white didn't, and white played rook d2. Now the winning move is queen b6 check. And suddenly, white's lost a piece with absolutely no compensation. But he's going to find some in a moment. Gets his rooks doubled. There goes the pawn. So suddenly, black is a piece and a pawn ahead, and black should win. But I mentioned that he had shut this bishop in, and it does start to come into a factor just a wee bit here. Threats on the back rank. Black covers the rook, because the rook is safe, is guarded by the queen. And here's where black misses his chance. The proper move is king g8, and white just run out of gas. Black will eventually get b6 and bishop b7 or a6 in, and white's going to be down a piece. But he tries it the wrong order. He didn't cover f7 first, and that proves critical. Now he realizes to his horror that white's got some good winning chances here. He doesn't have time for rook g8 because queen takes his mate. Boom, there it is. So black jettisons the piece back, the piece that he had won due to white's blunder. Suddenly, white's won his piece back. And now I look at this position. Black has 6 pawns, white has 5. You wouldn't think that black could possibly lose this. With correct play, it's probably a draw, but black is the one with the winning chances. Yet white's going to win this game. So what does black start doing wrong? Well, I think he started advancing this pawn a little too quick. Probably the first step would be just secure the 7th rank, and then, well, let's see, maybe white can go to the back rank and bring the king up, but you can still get g6 in at some point, I think, and try to get his king active. But anyway, black decides to create counterplay. Now the pawn is strong, but the farther it goes, the weaker it becomes. And it did serve the purpose of deactivating the white rook. And black shouldn't lose this, but he does. It's amazing that black's going to end up losing this game. But it's still it's still close to equal. White has some chances, because if you're going to be down a pawn in any ending, you want it to be in a rook and pawn ending. And the white king has suddenly gotten very active, and black is getting pawns off the board, but so is white. And you would still think that this game should end in a draw, even though white now has a passed pawn. Black can get one himself pretty quick. However, the way he's played it, he ends up getting his rook traded, and the game should still be a draw, believe it or not, even though the white king is approaching those pawns. Let's look at how it finished, and we'll come back and see how it could have finished. Black blunders with c5, maybe thinking white needs to take, and then I've got a passed pawn I'm going to run. Well, white doesn't have to take. This isn't checkers where captures are compulsory. White just shoves by, and the black pawn chain is extremely weak, and black has to always worry about this pawn. And at this point, black realized the futility of it. The white king is just going to go here and munch the entire black pawn chain. So how could black have saved this? Let's back it up slightly. Let's see. Is this it? Not yet. Okay. So here's where he got his rook traded, but he didn't have to get the rook traded. So the simple method would have been just let's see. You can't take with the king because this falls. So we'll allow for rook here. And now probably instead of rook b5, just take with the rook, and I'll offer a draw, and I'm sure it'll be accepted. But anyway, let's see. So what happens if black goes after the pawn? Well, white's going to go after pawns too, right? Okay, now here. Now let's see. Could be tricky, but I'll probably make some mistakes as I'm analyzing this, but if I'm playing black here, this is exactly how I'm going to make sure I save the game. I'm going to analyze it and find out what works and what doesn't. So first off, let's count. Counting and queening. In other words, instead of saying white goes here, black goes here, white goes here, black goes there. Instead of doing something like that, we're going to count. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 moves to get rid of the white pawns. Where does white go? 1, 2, 3, 4. And it was black just having the move and collected things. So it looks like maybe if black goes for the pawns, he's okay. Let's verify it. But maybe not. b5, and suddenly white wins. Okay, so what did black do wrong here? I'm thinking it's holdable. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. Rook takes, king takes. c5 just led to a bad game. What about c6? Let's try c6 instead. And let's try this, a4, a5 now. Now, if white does nothing, this pawn will just queen. So now here, 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 and you're off and running. So, let's see. So c6 might be the proper move here. See, king d6, a5. Takes. You have to stop and go here. And now black goes here. And you back up and take. Then you come here. Now who's winning this? Okay. This could get tricky here. We could reach one of those zugzwang positions in a hurry. What I mean by zugzwang, this pawn here and this pawn here. Whichever side moves his king up there loses. It's now black's move. So let's see. Black goes here. If white goes here, king d5 loses to king b4. So you have to play the well, let's see. The dissonant opposition. Let's see. Now, can you go this way? Wait a minute. No, I'm looking at this backward. King d6 is going to lose the pawn. But black can draw this. See, this will be a draw. So, black shouldn't lose this with proper play. And I'm sure there's more into it. But, this is what you do when you play correspondence chess. You don't just play a move and hope it works. You analyze things out. As it stood, black played c5 on move 41, and the game ended. Let's see, when did the game end? 45. Come on, why isn't it moving forward? There. Game ended on move 45, or 44 rather. Well, we'll see. Let's see. B5. King C7. And he played 41 C5 and resigned after white's 44th move. Just allowed 3 more moves by white. Right? 1 pawn move and 2 king moves, and black resigned. If black discovered he was lost there, why couldn't black have discovered this line when it was his turn to move c5? Right? Why couldn't he have discovered it then? The answer is he didn't analyze. That's it. It's not that he's a bad player. He's got a low 1800 rating. It's that he did not analyze the position. He treated it like an over-the-board game. This is not over-the-board chess. This is the kind of chess that you can excel at because you have time to make sure you play the right move. And this is how we played correspondence chess in the old days. There were 1,600 players over the board playing 2,200 level chess because they would take their time and they wouldn't make the blunders that you see in this video series. They would just sit there and play a solid game, and you really had to work on them. I mean, I ran into some very decent players rated under 1,800 in correspondence chess that managed to draw and probably even nick me here and there for a win. And it's only because they took their time. You can't play this like an over-the-board game, but you can play close to grandmaster chess for a good part of the game if you take your time and analyze things out. All right, that concludes this one. Thanks so much. I have more videos to make. They will be made as soon as I can get to them. Take care.